Hi, welcome to Yes Also. I'm Suzi Barrett. My guest today is one of my absolute favorite improvisers in the LA scene. His name's Payam Banifaz, and you may know him from his internet videos or from movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once. No big whoop. But in the improv world, he trained at UCB. He was on the UCB Herald teams Knuckle Puck and Queen George, which is now a house team. And we have an absolutely delightful and vulnerable conversation. He talks about what it was like to move here from Iran and pursue an acting career despite his father's wishes for him. It's really interesting, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. So, okay, here's Payam. Payam, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Suzi. It's great to be here. Thank you.
I'd love to know your comedy origin story. I only met you like when you were in a 401 that I taught, and that was my first experience of you.
Yes. I had the honor of you being my 401 teacher, which
No,
I
the
still
honor was
still
mine.
remember very well.
Did you find comedy or did comedy find you?
I would say definitely comedy found me. I feel like when I was like most comedians when I was a kid, I seemed to be able to make people laugh. It wasn't a thing that I was trying to do, and in fact, like I often took being people laughing at you or laughing with you as like they didn't take you seriously. So there was a part of me that almost didn't like it sometimes. Um, and then when I became an actor, I was like, I was determined to be a dramatic actor. And like, I thought there was such a distinction and like you had to make that decision. And then in acting classes, like sometimes I would do scenes that like people afterwards were like, oh, you're really funny. And I would like, again, that would kind of annoy me. I was like, no, I'm trying to be this dramatic actor. I was foolish. It was really years later than I found out all of it is the same. It's like, um, I just decided to go to UCB or just do improv because I was trying to sort of get my first agent, and it's usually in LA it's easier to find a commercial agent first than anything else. So somebody told me, hey, if you put improv on your resume, it'll be easier for you to find a commercial agent. So that's the only reason I did 101. Yeah, I was just one of those fucking LA actors, those scummy LA actors, and then. Then I really, really, really fell in love with it.
When did you fall in love with it? Like during 101?
I think honestly, your class is when I first started to really like, because before then it was very 101 doesn't count. It's just like a free for all and it's fun and just like everybody has fun in 101. But like 201, 301 were kind of tough, and they were so heady that I was almost kind of like almost losing like the joy of what made me like start liking it in the first place. And I feel like in your class we started focusing a lot on not just the technical stuff but the sort of the emotional aspect of it and like the human aspect of it. And it was such a fun class and memorable class, and like I was like, man,
group.
I want to feel this way when I do improv. I want to always feel this way. And I think that's that was the beginning of like, man, I really want to get on a team. I really want to keep doing this. This is really fun. And the people, everyone's really cool. Yeah. So
It's interesting that you stuck with it. Like when 201 started getting heady and hard, that you still stuck with it and fought through it instead of just being like, I have enough on my resume. Time to get an agent. I've done the minimum. What kept you going? What enticed you?
I just wanted to do 101 and 201 just so I can say, okay, I also did 201. But after I finished 201, I had 201 with Greg Tukulescu, and like Greg is a great teacher, but a very no nonsense teacher, and a lot of people. But I had come from the background of acting where we would have teachers literally scream at you. So this was like nothing to me. But I think other performers were like, once they got to 201 and they had a teacher that was kind of stringent, maybe, I don't know, they were just sort of like, wait, this is too intense for me, or this is too much thinking for me or whatnot. But I think 201, you need that type of teacher. And I'm really fortunate to have Greg for Tukulesco for 201, because he really sort of like tried to ingrain certain aspects in my in the student's mind that I still remember to this day. But 301 I actually felt was really rough, because it was like you're getting to something, but you're still not, because like you're still working on such basics and the basics of the Herald and everything. But again, it was really 401 that made me go, hey, I want to keep fucking doing this.
Well, thank God you did.
Thank you. Thanks, Susie.
Yeah, and I think your experiences, I think a lot of listeners will see themselves in it. In my experience, watching people come up through the scene, like it's pretty universal that people fall in love with it in 101, 201, and 301. The wheels start to come off a little bit, and it's like it gets so mathy, especially like, and also learning the structure of the Herald. And then 401, they can like get some oxygen back again. It's a matter of sticking with it so that it becomes second nature enough, and you can start enjoying your scenes again. Yeah, so I'm glad you stuck with it. Talk to me about like, so the difference between when you were young and people were laughing at you and it was making you mad, or people laughing when you were in acting class. When did it change? When did it evolve to you enjoying being laughed at and knowing that you were in on the joke?
I think like you how should I say? I come from like a background, the way I grew up, sort of the neighborhood I grew up and stuff like that, where it's like people didn't really value humor. Wasn't a huge thing that was valued. Like, so I kind of didn't understand how great it is and how important it is and how it's truly like a privilege to be able to be someone to make people laugh, because like to give someone laughter is a great gift. So like once I learned that my ego was sort of the thing in play that was sort of making me feel like being someone laughing at you was that like they was the same as ridiculing you. And once I kind of got over that and sort of matured a little bit, I think, shit, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. I want to dovetail on that. I had an epiphany years ago where I was like, oh, the only difference between somebody laughing at you and laughing with you is in the first version, you're not laughing.
Right.
Now you're in control of whether you laugh or not. So if somebody like finds something funny about you and you laugh with them, now you're both having fun instead of you being offended or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said it best. I just realized what I was thinking. Like when you said control, like, yeah, control. It's like comedy taught me how to control that, as opposed to like most of us in comedy, like we were always maybe considered funny, but didn't know how to control it, or didn't really know what the mechanism of our own comedic taste was. But like improv taught me taught me really the physics of comedy. Because like there really is, I had a teacher that would talk about the physics of acting and the physics of performance, and I feel like there's a very specific physics of comedy, and that's what like improv taught me.
What would you describe that as? I've never heard that that metaphor before.
Like, I think an example of a physics of comedy is the rule of threes. It's a thing that I think it's not just a theory. I think there is a physical truth behind it. That's why I said like physics. It's almost like the laws of comedy. The idea of an odd person and the voice of reason. Like these type of things these mechanisms are international. They're all people will find in every culture, whether you speak the language or not, or like you will understand these sort of basic comedic dynamics, and like pattern is a basic comedic dynamic that is almost like the comedic physics.
Yeah, these things that are hardwired into our very nature.
Right.
Like 2-year-olds or 1-year-olds will always laugh at peekaboo. You are repeating this convention. You teach them what the game is. By the second time you do the peek, they know the game. Then after the fourth time, they get bored unless you change it up. You have to heighten by like now you're hiding behind the couch, or you're waiting longer and then suddenly peeking. Well, yeah.
Yes, and like you said, heighten is this. I just think it's a thing that we naturally do that we don't understand until we then realize what we're doing. And it's like, if we're naturally doing, then it's a physical force.
Yes.
Like, this sounds silly, but farts.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single culture where people don't find farts funny.
They're the funniest thing in the world.
Falling down,
Right.
tripping, like something, I don't know, like physical humor. Like, it's so strange that.
Well, and seeing it happen to someone else. I love that Mel Brooks quote. Tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die.
Right.
It's like so true. And we love seeing people get taken down a peg. Like, we love seeing like someone who you know, like we love making fun of Trump. He should have status, but he's an asshole. It's fun to tear him down. You want to take the ego down a peg.
Right. But it's not fun to do that's the opposite of that.
Exactly. You don't want to punch down. That's bullying, and that's terrible. And why would you do that? That's not funny.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, even outside of like, now that that we were collectively in a society that we understand like bullying is not an acceptable thing, but it's also like, even before we got to that, we're like, I wonder if we were like, this is also not funny. Like, this doesn't really make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of the underdog doing that is more funny than the, like you said, the punching down part. I wonder if that's kind of almost, again, that's part of this universal sort of like system we all have inside us to understand and recognize comedy.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch the tone evolve overall, like the societal tone of comedy. Yeah. Like, I feel like culturally, as we've shifted from a nation of bullies, or like that bullying is how kids just kind of behave as a default, we're also, the adults are evolving away from that in comedy. Like 90s stand-up was and 80s very based on making fun of things. Like, what's the deal with this? And have you ever seen these people who blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Just the tone was very like acidic, you know? Yeah. And now I feel like comedians in general are more like self-reflective,
definitely
talking about their own vulnerabilities,
making fun of themselves, kind of, and then like their own neuroses, and like comedy. Comedy's just become more personal, more vulnerable, and now there's just so many different like quote unquote subgenres of comedy that like you can. It's like now there's like shock comedy, and then like comedy that's like people who just do acts that are offensive just for the sake of offensiveness.
Right. A lot of alt stuff, a lot of weirdo stuff. Yeah. It's kind of, things are a lot more
what's
nuanced.
His name? The dude that's like really big now, he was fired from SNL before he even worked a day there.
Oh, I don't know.
Shane Gillis. Perfect example of someone that like may not even be the type of person that he presents himself to be, but like it's very like, it's like he's purposefully going back to the humor that we thought was funny in the 90s or 2000s. Mm-hmm. Making fun of people because of like their body type, or like making fun of somebody because they're I don't know, like making fun of like disabled people and like stuff like that.
Just like awful, heinous stuff that's like maybe in his mind it's shocking, it's dangerous. He's like brave for doing it. And it's like, kind of a coward
definitely
for doing
a lot of or a lot of the sort of spitting in the face of like what people consider woke culture.
Yeah,
and it's funny because like most of what we consider woke culture, quote unquote, is just sort of like us realizing what's nice and what's not nice. Like,
like what kind of people we want to be.
Yeah. It's not even it has nothing to do with laws and anything like that as much as like it's just like.
Isn't it more fun to be a nice person who people want to be around, who's helping people? Yeah. Talk to me about, you said the neighborhood you grew up in, the friends you were around. Was it your family too, like who didn't value comedy, or that humor wasn't seen as an asset or a trait that was admirable?
My family, like they're big. My mom's always like loved. She put me onto like Mel Brooks and Monty Python, and she loved, Lucille Ball, and so like my mom definitely was a fan of comedy. I think the thing that the so from my dad, like my teachers would complain that like, oh, Payam is a very nice like boy. He's polite, he's respectful, whatever. But he's sometimes a nuisance in class. Like he's disruptive. Like he puts on an act in front of the other students. Blah blah. And that would really piss off my dad. My dad's like, bro, we didn't come to this country for your ass to be a clown. You know what I'm saying? like so to him, he just didn't get it. It wasn't anything that's going to help like a little immigrant boy someday like stand on his own 2 feet. Like my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, doctor. So anything that's going to me fucking around in school, he didn't like at all.
Right. You're wasting the opportunities that we made sacrifices for.
Yes. He's like, take your ass and be funny at home. You want to be funny in front of your mom and me and your brother. Like, don't do that shit at school. Like, that's not what he didn't like that.
How old were you when you moved?
I came here when I was 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
From
Iran.
From Iran.
Yeah.
And your how old was your brother?
My brother's 4 years old. He was 12.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a big move.
It was a big move.
That's an age where you've already established your sense of self, your community.
It must have, I'm sure it was very hard for him. And then like having to learn the language.
Well, and for you, even 8, I'm saying like, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about me? Yeah. It's the older you are, the harder it is. So like for me, it was easier than my brother, and if my brother was older, it would have been much harder than it was when he came. So like, I just learning the language was a really hard part. The culture, it was the first time my family was pretty like upper middle class in Iran, and when we came here, we were poor. It was the first time I was ever poor in my life. That was like a very shocking transition because I thought everybody in the U.S. was rich. Like this is what you kind of think of. Like I literally thought the streets were paved with gold. Everybody's rich and white. And like there's celebrities everywhere. And so like, but when we came,
I'm going to be friends with Michael Jordan.
Right.
I'm going to have pool parties every day.
I would ask my mom, do you think I'll see Michael Jackson when we get there? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like I don't know. Like.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure out how to escape this country.
Oh my God.
No, but,
as if the entire United States is like the size of like a small town.
That's how like ignorant we were. Like I didn't know like, I thought Los Angeles was its own thing. I didn't know Los Angeles was in California and like all that.
So you moved to LA.
We moved to LA. We lived in an area called Canoga Park. That at the time, right now it's a much better area, but at the time it was very poor. And
And did you find yourself? You were saying like in school you're kind of doing acts for your friends. Was that sort of a tool to maybe get in with people, or were you just kind of doing it because it's your nature? You're a clown by DNA.
I think both.
Yeah.
Like I would do it by nature and then realize that it was also a tool that would bring people close to me. Because when I came here, all I wanted to do was fit in. All I wanted to do was have friends. And luckily, I didn't really have a difficult... I mean, it was difficult, but it wasn't horrific in terms of, like, just kind of connecting with people. I realized, especially during the time when I immigrated to this country, that, like, laughter really connects people. And I sort of... I really appreciated that when I was younger. As I got a little bit older and I developed a little bit of an ego and I was just sort of like a stupid like teenage kid. That's when I was like, oh, I want to be only taken seriously and I want people to think I'm tough and, stuff like that.
I want people to think I'm tough. I'm going to go into acting classes.
Yeah. No, see, that was the thing. I didn't go into acting classes until I was like in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't afford acting classes back then in high school, and also like if my homies in my neighborhood find out like, oh, like, Payam's doing like acting classes, they were like, what the fuck? What is that? Like, what that's about?
Paint a picture for me of the style of tough you were. Are we talking leather jacket tough or like gold chain tank top tough?
I would say because of the homies I grew up with, I was like a wannabe cholo. Tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Later off podcast, I gotta see pictures of this.
I have one on me. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah. So that's the type of, and then yeah, it just I don't even know. I never even like talked to my friends and was like, hey, how would you guys feel if I did this? My assumption was that people would look down on me and think I'm not tough.
Yeah.
You know, they would use other words back then. Yeah, but
When you started gravitating towards acting in college, did you have a career path towards that in mind, or was this just kind of a fun?
Ever since I was a kid, there was something inside me like itching that like there's something about this that intrigues me and I can't figure out why.
And when did you break that news to your dad? When did you come out as an actor?
Oh man, I was 28.
Uh-huh. Long time.
Yeah, and it took me years to finally when I came out to my and I it's funny because I cannot even imagine what other people go through having to say, you know, like actually coming out to family, because this was very hard. I can't imagine coming out about like who you are.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
rough reaction.
I can't. Yeah. So it's almost like I don't even want to equate those two. It's not even fair to.
You can. Yeah. Everyone has. Your experiences.
But you know, when I told my dad, I don't want to go to law school. I've been going to this acting class, and I really think this is something I could do. He was like, you lost your mind. He's like, you've absolutely lost your mind. He goes, you're going to fail 100% because nobody. He goes, it's the reality of what you live in. Nobody wants to see someone like you on TV or film. No one's going to hire someone like you.
What did he mean when he was saying that?
He said nobody wants to see an Iranian because, like, as long as we've lived in this country, Middle Easterns have been really disliked, especially because of post 9/11. Post 9/11 was the worst thing that ever happened to any American Middle Eastern person.
How old were you when 9/11 happened?
9/11 happened in 2001. I was 19.
Wow. That's, yeah.
I was 19. And, you know, what I experienced, I didn't experience issues with, like, people because I didn't. But we experienced issues with, like, police. I experienced issues with, like, going to the airport. You know, when, like, everybody's in one line and then they look at your sort of passport and then they bring you into another line. And then, or they'll take you into a room.
Right.
You know, and they could get away with it. There was nothing you could do about it.
And how terrifying and how frustrating. It's like to be brought into a room, you haven't done anything, but they're looking at you as if you're suspicious.
Yeah.
What an awful experience.
Right. Especially when you're like a resident. See, I didn't become a citizen until I was 18. So, but even when I was a citizen, they were just kind of like, they'd
it
ask
doesn't
questions
matter.
like, why'd you go out of town? Like, and like, you know, what are you doing back or something? It's like, wait, what? Like I live here. Like, look at my address. It's literally 20 miles from LAX. But my dad was just like, he's
like, there's never going to be like anyone from our culture that's in mainstream entertainment. So give up now because it's not attainable.
He was like what you would have to go through in order to maybe even achieve this is like, it's like that level of financial instability. It's like, you can't do that. Like, you don't have those, like, we don't have those advantages in this country. We don't have those privileges. Like, this is what happens when you first come to a country. So it's like, my dad was just basically, like, you have to do something that you'll make money. There's guaranteed money. Like, there is a guaranteed path. For this is no guaranteed path. He's like, you want to do it on the side for fun? Do it.
Right.
But this can't be a career.
So what was your reaction to that hard line that he drew? Did you kept at it anyway, or did you listen to him and do something else?
I said to myself, I'm gonna do this or die trying. But I don't need to say that to my dad.
Right.
So I told my dad, I was like, yeah. All right, I'll think about what you said, Dad. But in my mind, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, now today it starts.
So were you living a double life then on the outside? Were you holding down some sort of a day job that was like pleasing to Dad while you were taking night classes or something?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Because the thing is, he also hadn't said don't take acting classes. He was just saying don't even think about this as a career. So I was taking the acting classes, and like I was sort of still getting through college, and then after college, I got into the real estate business. I became a mortgage. I was a mortgage consultant.
No
quote
shit.
unquote, for like 5 years, and I just sort of made money like that. And then I even got my MBA.
Wow.
And all that was sort of like
It's like cosplay
a
for
facade,
Dad. Yeah.
a ruse. That I knew that like this is a ruse, but also, it's education. It'll never hurt me. I'll never like regret the education. Although I just regret the loans and all that shit. That was a big mistake. But
You should have just been a broke actor from the jump and not.
Yeah, I should have just like said, "Hey, I'm going to do this, and if you want to throw me out of the house, that's fine." But like, but no, he didn't throw me out of the house. But like, yeah, I did live a double life for a long time.
So talk to me, like, so now that you are having success and you're booking roles and you're, you've done film stuff and you're wildly successful at improv and comedy. Has your dad come around? Does he see you in shows? Does he support this at all?
Yeah, he's really, really supportive now.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
He's very proud. He doesn't come to shows because he says they're always too late. Like for him, an 8:00 show is too late.
Right.
Also, I don't need him at shows because afterwards I'll have to explain like 80% of what was happening to. But like he's very proud. I think for him, really, it was never about. My dad loves the arts. It was never about. I don't want you to be an actor. It's like I don't want you to struggle.
Yeah, he was worried. Yeah.
And so like now that, luckily, at the very least, he sees me, be able to like live a life where I pay my bills and I do my thing and I can still enjoy my life and I take vacations and this and that. So like, and that he knows that I love what I do. Like he's very, very proud. Yeah.
Yeah. That's winning the lottery. His son is happy and doing cool things and can pay the bills. So
yes,
all of his fears have been put to bed.
And my mom, she was always supportive, but like, my dad was just sort of the louder voice in the room.
Yeah, and your mom, I would imagine your mom had to be more of a closet supporter if your dad's being that vocal about not wanting to encourage this as a lifestyle.
To me, closet in terms of like with me, she was like, just go do this, but do it your best. You know what I'm saying? You got my support if you're really busting your ass and doing it. But if this is just some like idea that you think is cool and it's going to sort of like wash out after a while, that I can't support. But around my dad, she would always be in the middle more. She's like, well, your dad is right about the education. Can't you do both? It was like, so it was kind of like she was always trying to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
My dad was much more extreme about like, this is a fucking bad idea.
Yeah. And you can see where that comes from a good place. It's like he's terrified that he doesn't want you to have that bad experience.
Yeah.
You've made a series of wildly viral Instagram vids of you like doing Iranian characters. They're so funny. They're super funny to me, and I don't have a background with that culture, but they feel universally funny, and also I think a cool way to sort of educate people about like your cultural experience. I don't know, that's how I
Thank you.
It's sort of bringing me in on inside Persian stuff and like, I didn't know that was a thing that happens at
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Yes, my whole like thing was like it was a pandemic and I was just sitting home bored and I just wanted to like be creative and so I just was posting videos, and then I decided to post one video about like basically stuff my dad says. Like I was seeing a lot of these sort of front camera facing videos of like things my Italian grandma says. And I was like, I want to do one about my dad. And I didn't think anything of it. It just like I was like, oh, like my friends will kind of see it and get a little idea and like laugh at my culture with me, because I kept complaining that there's nothing ever, no content, no TV shows, no about Middle Easterns that doesn't have anything to do with like terrorism or some kind of like
Right.
the Middle Eastern history or something like that. Like it doesn't have anything to do with that. And then people were kind of like, hey, why don't you just do that? So I did one, and then little by little, people in the Iranian community, especially the diaspora community, that people outside of Iran like me who spoke English, sort of seemed to gravitate towards it. And then I kept doing it just because it felt like it was that it was giving like Iranian Americans like me and Iranian Canadians and Iranians in UK and Australia like a certain level of joy. And so like I just kept doing it. And then
Yeah, it's a cool lesson in what I think at times is wrong with the entertainment sphere in general, like the corporatized entertainment sphere, where like they always want the universal or like something that that the most people identify with, or the common denominator. And this is a great lesson in being super specific and speaking to your experience. And if it's funny to you and it's truthful and specific, even someone who does not have that experience will find it funny. I find your videos hilarious. I don't need to have gone through the same like immigrant experience as you.
Absolutely,
like
yes,
it's because
absolutely.
it's the specificity that makes them brilliant. And if they were watered down and a more general take on stuff, they wouldn't be funny. It's
I kind of chalk it up to like the my big fat Greek wedding like effect, where it's like I think that was a really big deal for like us Middle Easterns. We all gravitated towards that movie because for the first time we were seeing these very specific aspects of family culture that we could really identify with. And apparently everybody could identify with to a certain level. And if you couldn't identify with, at least you can enjoy it. To your point, which is like that makes me so happy to hear, because my whole thing was just like I just want people to like laugh with it and look at Iranian culture, Middle Eastern culture, like sort of outside the spectrum of what we've seen it. I think one of the most important things that's happened in like entertainment, I personally think, is when Crazy Rich Asians came out. Because for years, studios and distributors were saying that like films won't do good globally if they have people of color as leads, because globally people prefer to see white people.
how
like
ridiculous. Yeah.
because of whatever, because of like there is, if that's what they're used to, or if they look at it as some kind of neutrality where it's like it's not gauging towards any one particular culture too much. But then
they're also like making that claim with no tests. It's like,
well, yeah, they're claiming that international. Long story short, I had gotten into the sort of like independent film industry a little bit. I was working on a thing, sort of got knowledge of the market and whatnot. And distributors didn't, international wise, would claim that like if like a woman or a person of color is the lead, buyers won't distribute it. Like that was just a thing that they believed. And then Crazy Rich Asians came out, it blew up globally, and then we realized no, like we can enjoy cultures that aren't our own, that maybe we don't even understand, but it's like if it's presented to you in a way that you can sort of grasp it and enjoy it, like it's we'll all enjoy. So
right, like I don't know what it's like to be a superhero, but I'm
Right.
gonna buy a ticket and watch Spider-Man do it.
Right.
Like that, all of movies are empathetic experiences of other characters' lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't need to be know anything about Asian culture to have enjoyed that film.
As long, if the
Absolutely.
film is a well-made film and well acted and well written, then it's enjoyable no matter what the story is about. Yeah.
There were so many films that really, like growing up, I watched that really celebrated black culture and celebrated the black family experience. But distributors and networks and TV shows would sort of like, oh, this is in the urban sort of category. So like they wouldn't look at it as a cultural thing, but it would just sort of. And then what does urban mean? It usually means like something crime related or something like. And so like we've had films that celebrate Black cultural experience here, but it wasn't appreciated by Americans. And then it finally happened when we found ourselves experiencing foreign culture and enjoying the foreign culture experience. Now, I think now through people becoming more progressive in this country in general, we're understanding that we should celebrate Black culture in this country as well, because it's like a culture of its own, and it's part of our own greater culture.
All of it. Yeah, there should be. Yeah, it's infuriating that the gatekeepers that decide what is made and what isn't are just this like select few people with the deep pockets that just say where the money goes. But people, the communities, all of us are hungry to see more stories and see people's actual voices, and not this watered down, homogenized story that's repeated every time. Do you find yourself? Do you play characters in improv shows that are like specific Iranian characters from your life, or do you kind of stay more middle?
I stay more. So the one thing, unfortunately, that I noticed that like even when it came to UCB, just in comedy, like that like when I had tried to do stuff like that, it seemed like it sort of for some reason was off-putting to people. I think some people didn't even realize that I was Iranian. So a couple of times when I had done like little like Iranian characters, people were like, "Oh, wait, are you?" I
thought you were like
making fun of like a culture, so that I could see. But other times, no. I when I was coming up, I didn't feel like it was super accepted, and then I got to a point where I didn't do it anymore because I didn't feel comfortable. Because it almost felt like I had to go now tell people like, hey, actually, I can do that. I'm like, but
I wonder if now that the community here knows
very
you,
different now,
right?
Well, not just that. This community is different. Even if they didn't know if I was Iranian, like, or they would probably people now. I think just in comedy are just more open-minded, more sensitive to each other's needs. UCB is certainly more diverse in all types of ways. So I think that's just was a sign of the times.
Right.
And that's the way I look at that, because I do see just with my own involvement in the community and the greater UCB community that like it's a very different time now.
I wonder when you said that you would do like an accent or something and people were like, whoa, like don't tread on, don't be like a Middle Eastern minstrel show here.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if now people are warming up to it because though they do know that that's your background. Like if I think because we are more tuned to being sensitive to all of that stuff now and realizing why it's bad and wrong, if I saw someone do a very thick, like Mexican accent on stage and I didn't know for a fact that they were Mexican, that would make me squeamish in the audience. I'd be like, ooh, yeesh. Yeah. But if I do know that this is their background, their culture, they are doing like an accurate impression of their mom or whatever, like now that I've seen your internet videos, I think that does buy you a little bit of runway to
definitely
do that stuff.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I think there was back in the times past where people didn't know. People just literally ask me all the time, like, hey, or like they thought I was like a white guy from the East Coast, or sort of just like very ethnically ambiguous.
You do have a New York vibe.
I get that a lot from people for some reason. But I think also the times when I would do it with people who knew I was Middle Eastern is they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know what to say.
Right.
Because I don't want to say something that will make me look like I'm, let's say, a white dude talking. I don't
Yeah,
know, making
well,
fun of a Middle Eastern or
and
whatever.
our UCB training angles hard towards calling out any unusual thing
Yeah.
and naming it or calling, at least addressing it in the scene. And you could be in a sticky spot where if you are playing a giant character or the unusual character in the scene who also is Middle Eastern, you don't want that to. It's like me as the voice of reason character would be in a tough spot. Like, well,
Right.
what am I
Right.
going to call out, or what is that?
Right. Right.
What is the
Which yeah. So my again, I don't want it to seem like it wasn't really a complaint as much as like it was just sort of what like. It was just kind of again the sign of the times. It was just like what was happening, and
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out like in real time too, in terms of like, well, like what do I lead with out here? Because I also don't, because again I was coming from the background where people telling me, my dad telling me, hey, like Middle Easterns don't do well in this, so I wasn't necessarily always trying to lead with, hey everyone, I'm Iranian, like
Totally.
I actually kind of a lot of times didn't mind people not knowing because I was afraid that like if a casting director knew I was Iranian, that like I wouldn't get a particular part because not because they're racist, but because like that's I don't know. I didn't even
Yeah.
know what I was. It was just these fears that like if people knew that I was like an Iranian or a Middle Eastern, that it would very negatively affect my career.
Yeah, you don't want to be pigeonholed and only be sent out for terrorist roles
Yes,
because of
absolutely.
the racial bias of the industry or people in general.
Yeah.
You also don't want to, like, I think it's a common thread that I hear from other friends who are immigrants, this experience of lost identity in childhood and trying to find where you land on the identity spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to fit in and be American. You also have like a strong cultural identity at home. You don't want to lose that, or like what, did you find the experience of landing on your personal identity? Did you find that difficult or that it took a while? And then also, what about finding your identity as a comedian, your comedic voice? And have you landed on what that is?
It took me a long time to find my identity as a person because I came here. I was always a very just like a soft, gentle kid. And then when I came here, I felt like that was not something that was valued. So they fought and tried so hard to become this thing that I really wasn't. Like this guy that people looked at as that he was tough and he was sort of like that was the only, it just felt like around me the main thing people valued was toughness. I'm not talking about my family. This is just sort of like how people are on the street a little bit. And I was always afraid if people realized what a sensitive soul I was, that I wouldn't be respected and that, or whatever, I'd be bullied or whatever. But it really took me a long time to lean into the fact that no, I'm who I am, and I'm a person that's just, I'm a soft person. I'm an artistic person. This is something that I love, and so it took me a long time to get to that point. My comedic voice is something that for me is still kind of evolving. I'm still really trying to figure it out. I know what I love to do, the type of characters I love to do, but I do think that I do think that if I had to describe myself as a let's say an improviser, which would be kind of easier because it's more specific, I would say as an improviser I'm someone that's a very committed silly person. like I feel like I have the ability to commit very hard on really stupid things.
100%. Yeah, you play weirdos with so much sincerity, and weirdos who double down on their points of view to the point of getting like exasperated and angry. Like you cannot understand why the rest of the world doesn't see this your way, and it is so. You're uniquely skilled at that. You're also so good at coming up with just bonkers specifics really quickly. Your the way that you and as unusual characters is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It means a lot coming
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah. What characters do you like to play?
like I love playing the loser that has no idea he's a loser, or like the person that
A braggadocious
yes,
loser, yeah.
or like someone that flips out over very stupid things, but uh, but like flips out, but is not ever a threat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like if somebody in an improv scene is threatening, that's never fun. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's like in a play, I want to see that danger, but in improv, I want to perceive that danger, but not fully see it.
I think what is so great about your performance style too is like you're uniquely positioned as someone who like you're sort of a slight frame. You're like a shorter guy. You have like a little bit of a higher pitched voice than like a like a threatening and so to
And
watch
it gets much higher when
when you get exasperated
when I'm on stage with somebody. Yeah.
yeah. Even just your normal stage voice, you think you go up a pitch?
I think if my character, whoever I am, or even me as a person, I get excited on stage, yeah, it just goes up.
Yeah.
In a way that I think in normal conversations it doesn't. But
yeah, but that you have a sort of a comedic superpower just in at the risk of sounding so pretentious, the instrument you were given, your physical body and your voice are not going to be threatening or scary. So it's like wonderful to watch you spin out because it's like not like we're all like, yeah, that guy's not,
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
No, yeah.
And you are a gentle soul. And I think that comes through too. Like there's something that spiritually reads, that you are, you can tell you're a kind person, even just watching you exist. Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you. And like my thing is like what I loved about improv before I was like getting into comedy when I was thinking about stand up or improv, like what I loved about improv was like that it's like performance. So it's like we can even sort of delve into our dramatic parts a little bit. Like one thing I love is me and my good friend Jacob Womack, who's another amazing UCB performer and teacher, and we would do these two persons where it's like our goal was to like let's let this be like almost like a dramedy. And so we would like really lean into the acting of it, and it was really fun because then when the comedy came in the moments, it was so fun. So it's like I love doing that too.
Having giving yourselves permission to go a longer period of time without a laugh.
Yes.
And then the audience is rewarded when the laugh comes, and
yes,
it's more,
and it feels so great, and both feel great. They're different, but both getting on stage and just being silly and having fun, and the audience is into it the whole time. That's great, and then also sort of playing these moments, and because again, like I really put so much training into being quote unquote a dramatic actor before I like came into comedy and realized that comedy and drama are really in the same thread, and the idea that like that drama requires more commitment is such a fallacy. Comedy requires significantly more commitment, I believe.
Talk to me about that. Why is comedy more or why does comedy need to be more committed?
Okay, I'll give you an example of why. So Naked Gun, I think Naked Gun is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Brilliant.
And Leslie Nielsen's performance in it is one of the funniest comedic performances I've ever seen.
Because it's so sincere.
Yes,
yeah.
because it's so sincere. And I've noticed all my favorite comedians, they have the, like, Robin Williams has an extreme level of commitment that a lot of it comes from also his background of being a Juilliard trained actor.
Right.
Like understanding that comedy isn't, hey folks, it's that like we commit so hard that the commitment is what heightens the crazy behavior.
Right.
Otherwise it's sort of tongue in cheek and you lose it after a while.
Yeah, and if it's not believable to an audience, then it's not. We don't want to laugh at it.
Right.
It's just like this is just a person trying to be funny instead of someone doing this behavior in a really serious way.
Absolutely.
Or like watching Leslie Nielsen, give like an utterly serious speech with like bird shit dripping down his
Yeah,
face, and he's
absolutely.
able to hold it and be so
Absolutely.
meaningful. Yeah.
And one of the first people who in sitcoms would do this is Lucille Ball, who's like, I still think, I still think I don't think I've ever seen a TV performer as great as Lucille Ball.
It's so interesting. I understand why she is funny and that she is funny. I have never laughed at her. I see where her performance is like technically great, and I see how comedy kind of doesn't hold up in terms of like often it ages poorly. Like the things that we found funny a while ago, there's exceptions. Obviously, Spinal Tap is still brilliant. Like
there is a lot of stuff in that show that we look to now and be like, the fuck is this?
And some of it, like stylistically, just the wide eyes, the mugginess of it. But I understand that at the time it was so groundbreaking. And it was also groundbreaking to watch a woman get messy and fall down and break stuff and fail.
But when you see her commitment to physical comedy,
it's
like
amazing.
Have you ever seen the Vita
Mix? Yeah.
Like that face she makes when she's eating that thing is one of the funniest things to this day I've ever seen in my life. That level of commitment and like performance, like but absolutely, you're right. It still is from the 50s, and there, but it's just when I look at the pure technique of her performing, the way she would commit to silly ass multicam comedy,
Totally, and invented multicam.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
like innovated that so that it
And
could better
syndication.
serve the, isn't that wild?
It was the first show to ever syndicate.
I absolutely don't want it to sound like I'm shitting on Lucille Ball.
No,
She's a visionary and a brilliant talent.
I love the fact that instead of going like, oh, I know this is funny, so I have to, like, you just said your opinion, which is because you're...
it doesn't make me naturally laugh or chuckle. I can nod and go, oh, yeah, she's doing a good job.
Because you're an expert in comedy, so you have every right to be able to analyze any type of comedic thing you see.
Right.
Right. No, I mean, like, you've earned that, like, where, like, your analysis is like, yes, of course I can understand.
And also, comedy is just so personal. It's so subjective. I noticed that a lot in the years like watching Herald auditions. A group would perform, they would leave the room, and half of us would be like, oh my God, that person was great. And the other half would be like, I didn't like them. And it's like, and we were all quote unquote experts at that point, but it's just so personal. It's so subjective. What makes you laugh and what doesn't,
Is there like somebody, is there a comedian or comedic performer that you look to and be like, this person sort of...
Christopher Guest, I think, is absolutely brilliant. And speaking to that, the level of acting.
Commitment, yes.
You cannot find a crack. It's like black ice. Like, you can't find a moment where he is not completely his character. Like, rewatching Spinal Tap, Guffman, I think, is one of the best movies ever made. There's just...
And anything else I've pretty much ever seen him in, even if it's like more of a dramatic, like
The Six-Fingered Man and Princess Bride.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he just leans in and he absorbs a character in a way where there's no winking, there's no and he disappears. It's like watching a magic trick to me.
On camera, that was like my favorite thing to try to do. On stage, I just don't have that discipline. I get to a point where like something will happen, and I don't know, like I guess it's harder on stage, but he's just.
Why do you think it's harder on stage? I have my own opinions about why I think that is, but why do you think it is?
I think because on stage sometimes things happen that is not in my control that I cannot help but laugh or react to as a person, not just the character.
That's exactly it. In improv shows, because it's happening in real time and we don't have a script and we don't have a game plan going in, we are the actors, but we are also the audience.
Yes,
it's like one of the best gifts in the world. It's like I get to stand on stage and be an audience to my scene partner while also being in the scene with them. It's like a weird fantasy camp.
The one thing about improv I lament is that it, for some reason, doesn't have a foothold in the national sort of zeitgeist the way stand-up does.
Right.
Because if people would just give it a shot and stop looking at it as like maybe there's some weird nerdy thing they saw in some corner somewhere, like that it's a incredible skill, incredibly stylized, amazing skill that like anybody can enjoy if they just give it a second to it.
Yeah.
I think improv should be huge in this country. It should be huge.
I think it's growing. I mean, I've seen it grow exponentially.
It is, and it deserves to, like, I don't know. It's improv is one of the greatest things I've ever decided to do with my life. It's like it's introduced me to some of the greatest people I've ever met. It's the closest I, as an adult, will ever feel to that joy of that moment of playing as a child. Yeah. And I'm doing it with a bunch of other grown-ass adults who feel the same way I do, who I admire their skill from top to bottom. I mean, it's just like,
and
what a
all
great
doing
life.
It is the best life. The best. And everyone's doing it just for the love
joy,
of the game. Yeah.
We all spent money doing it.
Exactly. We're not making money.
No.
Yeah.
And then it's the culture of support.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, where else is there really a culture of support where the yes and is about support? I mean, it's just like
it is. When I talk to friends of mine who are stand-ups exclusively and not improvisers, and we talk about the differences, it's wild. The stand-up can be a very cold world. It's competitive and it's a solo sport. You're kind of out there. You have to prove yourself, and people talking about like other stand-ups when they're on stage, like someone goes on stage and everybody else shit talks their set or whatever. I was like, God, it's just the opposite. Like improv couldn't be more like warm and fuzzy. It's a team sport. We're all in it together. There's no agenda. You're not trying to like make yourself look good or get famous.
And if you do, everyone can see it.
Yeah.
That's a blemish on you. I love stand-up. I have a lot of respect for it.
Same.
But
I absolutely admire stand-ups. I think it's an incredible skill and art form.
Absolutely. But the idea that I get to perform and act in this comedic setting to me is what always was set it apart for me. That's why I never really said stand-up. I just wasn't anything I need to attempt. Yeah.
Well, we are out of time, so I have to end this. But this was a joy, and
such a joy. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to plug? Is there a show that you can create and put on TV that is the type of show you want to see that you craved when you were a kid? And how do we see that and when?
I would love to see. I would love to. I would just love to have a comedic series about an Iranian family, or even like several characters, and one of them is an Iranian, where it's like you're laughing with them, laughing at the culture, and but this person is an American,
right?
Just like me, but is an American Iranian, and you're laughing with them and at them, and single camera preferably.
Love it. Yeah, go make that show.
Yeah.
What can you plug now that you want?
Follow me on Instagram. I'm at pbani, PBANI. Please come and watch my team, Queen George. We are the second Friday of every month, and then also my team, Boost Boost, we're the third Friday of every month, and my team, Benetton, we are the fourth Friday of every month. All at UCB, 8:30 at night. Oh no, sorry, Boost Boost is at 10 p.m. third Friday of every month. It is too late. 10 is late, but please come.
Yeah, great. Payam, thank you so much for being here and sharing yourself.
It's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, same.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much.
The end. If you have a question about improv that you would like me to ask a future guest, email it to yesalsopod@gmail.com and I will get it on the show. If you're a fan of the show, follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod. And please help us out by liking, rating, reviewing, clicking, sending, talking, and blasting us to your improv communities. That will help us out a lot. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. I don't know.